There we go. It helps if I unmute my mic. Okay. Hi, everybody. I am Nika Sherrill, and this is the ItCast Real Talk on Sex. The ItCast is our community outreach podcast that increases diversity in conversations on health and sexuality. Through this work, we're creating a world where all people feel loved, honored, and respected. We have some upcoming events this season. Join us for the Global Sexual Health and Freedom Summit, September 17th and 18th. You can RSVP at sexhealthsummit.com. Also, get some one-on-one coaching with me. If you have anything coming up in your life that could be beneficial to work with someone with, please go and schedule a one-on-one session. Follow my link tree to get there. Same thing on Linktree. Ask us anything. We want to hear from you. We want to know what you want to see on the show. And also just go ahead and feel free to post your comments and questions here live as well. Access to our bonus content is on Patreon, patreon.com/Nika Sherrill. And you can get all the juicy tidbits that you didn't see before or after the show. Subscribe to this YouTube channel and share with your community. Okay, so today we have Real Talk on shadow work. And in the booth, we have, here we go. We have Amber Rose. Amber is a, hi. Amber is a holistic health practitioner and owner of Zen Af Vibe. Just had to say that one all the way out loud. Amber, go ahead and tell us a bit about yourself and why you're doing the show.
All right. A bit about myself. I was born and raised here in Sacramento. I am from South Sacramento, which really helped to create and embrace my spiritual gangsta duality and being able to accept all walks of life. And holistic health came to me after years and years of just spiraling and being my worst because I had all of these conditions and patterns that didn't belong to me. So through holistic health, I've healed myself many, many times. It helped to spark me doing Zen Af Vibe, and for me to spark doing, I also take care of people's homes and plants and pets, and I do energy work on animals. I've always been this connected to earth spirit, and I attribute that to being a descendant of a Native American tribe known as the Yokuts. We are from the Northern California Valley, and so I very much honor that part of myself, and it's something I'm very passionate about. So I'd say that all of the trips I've gone in this life and in other lives and these layers brought me here full circle to have this conversation with you today about shadow work. And it's just something that if there were like three things that I wish every person in the world would do as a practice, it would be meditation, shadow work, and microdosing shrooms. I think that those three things have everything to do with our safety, with us feeling good as a whole, and just with healing those layers that we often repress. So I'm just so happy to be here in this space with you.
I love it. I love it. And so I love the recipe.
Yes.
Meditation, shadow work, shrooms. Got it, y'all. There we go. Healing.
You gotta do all. You have to do mind, body, spirit. It's not just one or the other. It's encompassing our whole body.
Nice. I love that. I love that. So can you tell us a bit more about how shadow work actually works? Like, I've got some ideas. Yes, please.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It sounds scary. It's like shadow work, like I'm going to be working with the dark parts of myself. Well, we all have dark parts. We have parts of ourselves that we might consider to be ugly. I like to think of it as when I was a child, I loved playing with my shadow. And then as I got older, I became afraid of certain things that were inside of me because I didn't understand them. I didn't relate to them. I didn't know where they came from. I believe that our bodies, these beautiful energetic vessels that we carry, our meat sacks, they come with trauma. And a lot of that trauma is from our childhood. a lot of that trauma is just from our lineage. It's from things that our ancestors and those who've walked before us have experienced that we're carrying with us through our DNA. And so shadow work, to me, the best way that I sum it up is it is a practice of self-love. It is a practice of honoring the repressed, of honoring the triggers. And so that the first thing that we do when you want to start diving into shadow work is you just sit with the uncomfortable things that come up, no matter what that looks like for you. It might be some very heavy, heavy childhood trauma or an experience that happened with you. And instead of coping the ways that we normally cope, which as human beings, we're excellent at distracting ourselves, it means really sitting with that memory and looking at how it made me feel, how I would have wished things could have gone, forgiving. There's so much forgiveness in shadow work. And then just loving that part of me, loving that part that maybe I was embarrassed of, or I was ashamed of, or I didn't understand, just giving space for it. And if I don't like it, I'm going to retrain myself to do it differently. Yeah. So I'm doing shadow work in a lot of regards for the family trauma that I've experienced since the womb. There's womb trauma that often we carry with us from our mothers. And I've done trauma healing and shadow work for a lot of sexual things that have came up in my life. And what it's done for me is it's allowed me to not just feel more ease and at home within this body and within this space, but it trickles out into all of my relationships. And it's built this beautiful structure of boundaries and supportive space and reciprocal, beautiful energy that I want everybody to be able to experience that. And it can be uncomfortable. It really can. But it's those parts of us that need the most love.
I am uncomfortable right now.
Exactly, because I'm triggering you.
Even thinking about it, I'm like, okay.
Just gonna sit.
It's so real. Like that. I had this moment this morning, and it was quite amusing for me, that just resurfaced as you were sharing, where I was writing on my community chalkboard, and I wrote something, and I looked at it and I was like, oh, that looks funny. Like, it didn't look like the other people's writing on the board. And I had some kind of way I felt about it because I've been ashamed about my handwriting my whole life. And then I looked at it and I was like, that's Marnika's G. That's how I do that. And I felt so seen.
Yes.
And appreciated by myself. And it was it felt right in alignment with this conversation. And I don't know, it feels like a small thing, or I think it sounds like a small thing, but it's not.
And on the spectrum of what shadow work is, there's no big or small. I believe that every little bit matters. Every part that we sit with and we process and we really dive deep into, it's all going to affect other parts of our life. And so there's no right or wrong way. There's no, I'm going to do the biggest shadow work ever. It's not like a competition. I will share that for me in my shadow work, it has to do with constant awareness of how things make me feel and how my body responds. But in regards to the sexual trauma that I had to heal, that was a long process. That was, I would say, and we're not talking about every day I wake up and I'm like, okay, on my way to do shadow work. It doesn't work that way. Shadow work is something that you are intuitively listening to your body and your memories and to things that are repressed. And then you're saying, okay, I'm going to sit with you today. And so it was a good 2 years of, I was abstinent. I did trauma timelines where, for me, and I will share that it's very personal, my sexual trauma began the day that I got my first period. And I was 13 and it was my birthday. And I was completely scared with what was going on with my body. I had no idea. I didn't know about sex. I didn't know about boys. And I'm not faulting my mother for the way that she handled it, because she came from a home that was not nurturing. All she did was give me a box of pads and sent me on my way.
Mhm.
And so it taught me an inherent shame about my body, and also a lack of love. And through that lack of love that I did get from her, I began to seek it through very, very unhealthy ways, through sex with people that didn't deserve me or honor me, through addiction, through not giving my body what it needs. And you're thinking, wow, that all happened from it. It does. It stems from something. It can be one memory from your childhood that is just, you're holding on to it and you don't realize you've subconsciously created this world around that experience. So shadow work is, it's very much tapping into the conscious part of ourselves. The, why am I doing this? Why does this feel this way? Why does this person trigger me in that way? And then not judging it, not placing a good or a bad label, just allowing it to be what it is. And if you don't like it, you change
Yeah.
it. Every piece of shadow work that we do counts.
Um, I'm just gonna be flat out honest. I find it completely impossible for me to say I love you to a romantic partner. Like I have avoided that so hard.
Mhm.
And something as sweet as that, like that's shadow work. Like as you're talking about it, I'm like, ooh, what is this? What is this in me that has it impossible for me to be that vulnerable? Like,
Yeah.
and it's not impossible. I'm working on it. I'm working on it. But
It takes a minute to peel back some of the layers.
yeah.
It really does. I personally, when I do shadow work, oftentimes I do incorporate microdosing shrooms. I incorporate shrooms that are specific more for mental, not so much for the melty. I want to incorporate very safe space when I do it. I will have healing frequencies on. And I'd say my number one tool for my shadow work is my journal. My journal is my safe space. No matter what I say, no matter what the world may view as ugly or disgusting, that is where I can write out whatever I need to write out. And as I am, I'm therapeutically moving it along. I'm saying, okay, Amber, this happened to you in your childhood and it wasn't right and it wasn't fair. But I forgive those people because they did not know any better. And I am moving on. I am now creating nothing but safe and harmonious space for myself. And
Mhm.
I'm not going to surround myself with anything other than that. It took a really, really long time and a lot of being my own worst enemy to get to this place of Zen. This is like, I don't like to joke about it, but me being Zen was a lot of struggle and trauma to get here. And I honor it. And I believe that I was placed here so that I can share this with people, because I haven't met yet to this day anyone who isn't carrying some sort of inner childhood trauma.
Right.
And if we can get to hang out with our inner child, ah, like, that space, you know what I'm talking about. Like, you think back to your most joyous day as a child, we should be feeling that type of joy all the time. We shouldn't
Mhm.
feel so afraid and so harbored and walking afraid to express ourselves. And so shadow work relieves us from that guilt and the repression so we can just be free. I'd
Mhm.
say my leveling of not giving a fuck went up real high, like real high.
Yes.
Prior to shadow work, I cared what people thought about me. I cared how
Mm.
they judged my body. I cared about the way that I looked. I cared about I don't care anymore. It's not that I'm not honoring or resonating differences of opinion or differences from other people, but other people's opinion of me does not matter. If my spirit is in alignment and my body is at ease, then I know I'm exactly where I need to be. I don't need affirmation. Lot of feelings.
I
Lot of
like
feelings.
that. I mean, I am constantly in need of validation. We'll talk about that on another show.
Side note, I'm
or
still
here.
doing shadow work. Like, you know, if there's anyone that's ever got to a point where they're like, oh yeah, I'm fully healed. No, it doesn't. It's so the thing with healing is it is not linear. It's not a one-stop shop. It's not a, I'm going to go to therapy one time and be good. I'm going to sit and do this journal prompt and be good. No, you doing the work is you honoring yourself. And you're not just honoring yourself, you're honoring your future lineage, your future family and ancestors, but also those of you who didn't have this possibility, who didn't know about shadow work, who were never able to heal. So it is a process. And that's why when you do it, you have to just do it gently, gently, and with reverence and with a lot of compassion,
Let's talk a bit about the normalizing. So you talk like we gotta like it's deep, the trauma, the childhood trauma, and a lot of it doesn't get talked about. So we think it's normal, like, oh, well, of course, everybody's experiencing this thing. So let's talk about what that looks like.
One of the things that I like to bring up, that it is an uncomfortable fact, but all of us, every single person you come in contact with has family that were either colonized or were colonizers. And that is something it's very uncomfortable to sit with. And so I think that the narrative needs to be brought up that even if you don't feel a responsibility for what your ancestors did, it's going to carry on with you in your body and it will manifest. And so for me, I've had to really dive deep into what my ancestors have done, what happened to my ancestors, and then just creating space for their healing. It's uncomfortable to talk about things like this because it brings a lot of shame. It brings a lot of sadness and a lot of regret. But I think with today and what's happening today is I can't be more grateful to be alive during a time where almost so many people are doing the intergenerational trauma. Right. So many people have decided, I'm not going to do the way I was taught. I'm going to be better. And I think the more we have that conversation about let's talk about what your ancestors did, and not to judge, but just to come to a place of understanding, to give that space. And then let's not repeat those same mistakes. Right. Let us show up for all of humanity. Let us coexist with equity and equality. And we don't have to repeat the patterns of what maybe perhaps my great grandfather did, who was in the war. We don't always have to be proud of the things that our families have done, but we do have to take responsibility for the way that it affects us and how that trickles out into our relationships. Right. Sometimes racism is so inherently patterned into people's behavior that they don't even realize it. They don't even hear the hurtful and the hateful that comes out. And when you do shadow work, you're going to face that. You're going to face, does this really align with who I want to be, with how I want to be perceived in the world? And a lot of times the answer to that is no, it's not. Yeah. And it's a comfortable conversation, but I just think it needs to happen.
That is so real. That is so real. Like, you don't see yourself from out here. You don't hear yourself from out here. And so to actually take that moment and be able to internalize and look at and work with it. That is huge. I
commend
also,
that.
what was that?
But I commend anyone who's doing the work. Anyone who's doing the work, no matter how big or small you think it is, anyone right now that is doing the decolonization work, I absolutely commend you.
Yeah. I think I think that this is the generation of the buck stops here. Like that's my opinion.
Oh, it is.
But like, yeah, it's like we're talking about it so much, and we're going into so many different conversations in a public way that it's really altering how we interact with each other. And you talk about colonization in this this broad scope, but what does that actually look like individually within the family? And so like these are the generations of the buck stops here on alcoholism, on addiction, on abuse, on incest. Like there are so many things that when you talk about them, and when you actually start to put them out in the space of being accountable and doing the shadow work, it allows that space of like reckoning. It's like, let me look at myself and how I can resolve this right here, regardless of what my past is, what I've been through, such that it doesn't get passed along. Because like these are our inheritances.
I believe that. I think some of us were chosen. I believe that a lot of us chose this. We literally, I picture myself and all of my versions of myself and all of my timelines before I was conceived into this body. I sat at a table in the cosmos and I said, I'm going to be the one to heal addiction in my family. And I got sent down here, and I have experienced so much trauma and so much death and so much struggle. But I'm proud to say that I am 11 years sober. I do have 3 adult children, and none of them drink. And I have lost a father to alcoholism. I've lost a lot of family members to it, but the buck stops here because my children are now equipped with the coping mechanisms and the space to understand that we don't have to drink. It's okay. It's okay to not go out and wild out. It's okay to party and not black out. And their kids will never have to know the struggles that we did. They won't have to go to the funerals early or go and visit family members from alcoholism. And it's a very, I don't want to say it's a heavy burden, but it's a heavy role. And when you're going through it and you're acknowledging, okay, I am the person that's going to do this, sometimes you will feel completely alone and you'll feel like nobody understands you. And I have to give space and just to encourage those of you that get to that point to please just keep going, to keep going, that every healing ripple sends out a vibration. Every thought sends out a vibration to the universe. And once you make that conscious, sovereign decision, the buck stops here. Today, I am going to heal the trauma in my family so my kids never have to deal with it. It's like the floodgates open and the universe will respond. It will give you what you need, and it won't always be what you want. It will not. I'll never forget when I was going through my sexual healing with my sexual trauma. I'll never forget. I remember sitting right here in this floor and going, is this ever gonna stop? Is this ever gonna end? Like, am I ever gonna? And I'm proud to say that I've made so much progress with doing shadow work on the sexual trauma of my timeline that it's not coming up as often. I am attracting partners that see me fully. I don't have to hide myself. I can be proud of, I have so much sexual energy as a being that's ruled by goddess. I know that sex is one of my very, very divine gifts. I think it's going to be one of my legacies, is my lovemaking. But I had to heal myself, like really heal myself, because I kept giving that power away.
Right.
calling that power back in all ways.
Yeah. This, I'm hearing in what you're sharing is actually a lot of compassion and self-forgiveness. Like
Mhm.
that's what keeps us on the journey because you have to, it's about loving and accepting yourself. And oh God, I can feel it right here. Okay, not other people's opinions of me don't matter.
Yep. Real,
Oh,
real challenge, the biggest challenge. I mean, maybe it depends on who you are. Learning to love ourselves as a whole and accept us, yes. But let's talk about learning and accepting the people that did us wrong, the people that taught us wrong. That that was another shadow work for me that I had to do with my own mother. And that I want to have a relationship with her because I love her. She gave me life. And it took me really stepping out of my own role as her daughter and looking at her as a human and seeing when she raised me, was she doing these things out of malice or was she doing them out of what she considered to be love?
right.
And and it might be an uncomfortable conversation, but if somebody doesn't know any better, there's very deep power in being able to forgive them for that. It doesn't mean we have to allow people into our energetic field. If someone has wronged you, absolutely place the space, but don't carry that.
Yeah,
Don't carry it in your body. It's going to come up somewhere as a sickness or a pain or an ache or an anxiety. Just forgive that person and then let them go. But don't hold on to that grief. It's a process. It is.
yeah, yeah. And, I think about when we talk about they they're teaching us what they know and they're loving us the best way that they know how. And this is an every generation conversation. I'm sure that for your mom and for parents out there, it's like I want to do better than I had.
Yes,
And these are the tools that I've got to do it with.
yes.
um Another thing that comes up is like parents um often have a hard time having conversations around sex and sexuality because of their own unhealed trauma and like what
Mhm.
that looks like. So what you're saying about like forgiveness, like that's compassion. And when you can actually have compassion for yourself, you can have compassion for others.
Absolutely. Absolutely. There's that, and that's why I believe shadow work is a practice of love, just in the most simplest and the most deepest and the most empathic, empowering ways. It is truly loving every single part of myself from the moment of conception through all the timelines and not holding any guilt for things that I did not have control over. You know, it's hard when you're raised in a household. For example, mine was not emotionally supportive. I wasn't encouraged to be this. I'm a highly sensitive person, so I feel things on like a completely different level. I wasn't encouraged to do that. And now I see that as one of my greatest gifts. And I'm not upset that my mom didn't understand it. I don't even think that the term highly sensitive person was around in the 70s and 80s. So she couldn't have known. There's no way that she could have known. My daughter is just special. She's not dramatic. She's not moody. She feels everything on a cellular level, like on a much deeper level than other people. And now, today, now that I know what that means and I'm able to place boundaries, it's one of my greatest gifts. But for a long time, I carried shame about it because of the way I was not supported or seen. I forgave her. I forgive her for all of that.
Oh, that is that is so real. That is so real. um One of the things that is there for me, and like we talked about losing people early and all these different types of like healing and things that we have to move through. um so looking at how you can't heal yourself in the place that like caused the trauma.
Yes, yes. That is true. That saying, you can't heal in the same environment you got sick, is so true, and it's true on so many different levels. We're not talking about I can't be in the same home. That's not it. We're talking about you can't be doing the same things if you want to heal. So if my issue is physical and I'm having some back pain, and I know that the back pain is attributed to the stress that is in my life, if I go to the gym, it's not going to take away the back pain. If I go to the doctor and get medication, it's going to temporarily take away the back pain. What's going to take away the back pain is looking at what is causing that stress and that tension and that inflammation to manifest physically into my spine. And that can be really uncomfortable. That could be, you might have to change your job. You might have to change your partner. You might have to move. A lot of it has to do with your diet and your intake. It's all of the things you're feeding yourself. Does it align with keeping your body healthy and whole? And so it is yeah.
Ah. And speaking of feeding ourselves, like feeding ourselves energy,
Yeah.
like I can think of so many different things that like inspire me and like keep me moving and keep me motivated and like excited inside. And then there are those things that are like heavy and weighted and like consuming all these different types of energy, like keeping that space supportive and creative and not tampered.
Yes, I agree. It's like we know when we're aligned, when we're in our flow state. And when we're in our flow state, that's when our joy levels are the highest. And that's when we're not distracted by our phones, or we're not feeling cold, or we're not spiraling in our own minds. It's when we're doing something that just aligns with everything that we stand for. And that includes our company. If I spend time with someone and my heart starts going fast, that is like, it's like an interesting, our bodies have compasses. Our bodies are always like telling us which direction to go this way, go that way, go that way. And so we don't always listen to it. It is kind of interesting when it happens, but once you really become aware of how incredible your body is, about how resilient it is, and that it is just energy, you will be able to walk into a room and be like, nope, I'm good. Or, for example, I use it when I'm driving. When I'm driving in the car, I can tell energetically if the person beside me or behind me is driving aggressively. I will move out of their way. I'm just listening to my senses and to my energy and to my intuition and to my third eye. And it is something that you can do over time. It's something that it's like working any muscle memory. It's just about honoring and having discernment for, so does this align with my central nervous system? How does my central nervous system feel right now? How is my breath? Am I holding my stomach? Am I clenching? A lot of us do this fight or flight thing where we hold our shoulders, and it's like you're squishing grapes in your armpits, but really what you're doing is you're protecting yourself from something. And so it's about honoring, how can I create safe space? What does safe space feel like to me? And safe space to me is, I mean, there's a lot of it, but really it's joy, it is alignment, it is happiness, and it's also being able to feel when grief does come up, when sadness does come up, when anger does come up, and processing it and then letting it move through, not judging those parts. I am not a good vibes only person. I think that that narrative is actually very dangerous. And I'm not judging those who follow it or believe in it, but it is impossible to have good vibes. You have to sit with the dark. You have to sit with the ugly. You have to sit with the things that make you uncomfortable in order to feel whole. And so I'm like all vibes only, or Zen as fuck.
All vibes. Ooh.
Right? Embrace your emotions. Embrace your feelings. Don't judge them.
Oh no, that's so perfect. like, I think when we think about that like Zen space and like, okay, like, what is it like being meditative and being calm and all these things, like it's like being happy.
Yes.
And it's not like when I sit to meditate, like all this stuff, oh my God, oh, you don't even know what's gonna come up. And
Yes.
it does not like it's really that like self-processing and listening to what's there. And even moving beyond the inner critic. It's like we talked about that compassion and that love space. And like there are these like for me, this mix of my emotions inside. And when I am able to go and sit and be with that emotion, I get the message that it's ready to give me.
Yes.
Yeah.
I love that. I love that. It's giving space to things. It's allowing and just not judging. And it is a practice. It absolutely is a practice. We as humans, we are like inherently judgers. As soon as we meet someone, we look them up to down, and then we're like, okay, I'm going to put them in this box. I'm going to categorize them as this. And I have worked for years to reprogram my brain from that. That now when I see people, I just see humans. And if there's any part of them that triggers me, that's something that I need to, it's, and without judgment, but there's something there that I need to look at. For example, I get weirded out when I'm with people that talk too much. It riles me. I'm a very calm, I like to be calm. And so when that happens, I can either shut down and, save myself, or I can just go, you know what, Amber, you're going to allow this to happen. I honor that I'm much more comfortable having calm, free flowing conversation, but not everybody is like me. Not everybody, we're all just humans doing it as we know and learning as we go. And there shouldn't be any judgment there. So we should just show up for each other with loving space. It sounds hippy dippy, but it is. Like all the woo woo. Yes, it is. We were meant to get along with each other. We were put on this earth without technology, without these lines and these fake lands and these building
Right.
structures.
Borders.
Yes, and we had everything that we needed from the land and from each other. And I'm there. That's where my mindset is. I live a life of bartering, of trade, of giving people. I don't really look at monetary value, and I get really uncomfortable with labels. I just want to honor people as they are, however that looks.
Yeah. I mean, we're meant to be communal beings.
Yes.
Like being cut off from society and community is actually detrimental to our survival. And like, regardless of whether it's like survival skills and survival tactics, no, it's like the emotional disconnection. It's that like barrier, that loneliness that can kill you.
No, it can. It can. It is why I'm not a fan of the metaverse. It is why I'm not a fan of social media as a whole. I understand as a tool what it's used for, but
I was like, talk about being triggered by people.
A lot of this has to do with younger people, like in their 20s and 30s. They don't know how to connect without it. Like, go out to any restaurant. I challenge anyone to go anywhere today and count the amount of people looking down. And then just, I imagine a world where we're not. And so I try to do things when I go out and I run errands. I leave my phone in the car. I'll try to spark conversation with random strangers. I try to talk to homeless people all the time. I feel like the pandemic really helped solidify a lot of isolation for folks. And that's not good. It is not healthy. Even if you're someone like me who like I have to have down and alone time to recharge, I also recharge by having conversations like this, by being with people that see me fully, or even with being with people that challenge me. It's all an energetic exchange. So I would love for people to not isolate and to put themselves out there. But I understand it can be a little scary sometimes. We're inundated with news. We're inundated with tragedy constantly. The media, that's what they're paid to do. And so that's why I go back to disconnecting and reconnecting to the earth. When you're in nature, when your feet are in the ground, when you're digging or when you're smelling the grass or you're connecting to the ocean, that is when we're where we're supposed to be. And that's where it all started. And that it feels so good. So I'm just campaigning for more of that.
I love it. I love it. I love it. And I want to say hi to the people out in the audience. My brother's there. So I am so with that though. When you think about the cultural indoctrination, particularly of this country, you're right. It's like fear, scare, fear tactics, fear, scare. Like you don't want to be.
Capitalism. It's capitalism.
Right.
We are told that we have to work 75 hours a week. We work more than we have free time off. We work just to pay bills. We get beaten down. And so if our physical is getting beaten down, of course our spiritual and our mental and our emotional is going to get beaten down along with it. So I understand how hard this existence can be. I really do. And so if there's any way that we can create more space and peace within ourselves, then our outside world will at least feel a little bit less heavy, a little less heavy.
Yeah. So, okay, so speaking of energy, and yeah, this is all energy.
My whole body keeps getting it. Yeah.
Oh my God. So we talked about sacred cosmic sexuality and manifestation.
Yes, yes. Okay, so my whole thought process I will just go ahead and explain for context. I am an extremely fluid, open-minded, not vanilla, kink-friendly sexual goddess. I am very much in tune to what this body does and can do and give. So it took me a lot of shadow work to get to this point of power. But my thought on it is that these bodies harness all of these energies and memories and things that we carry in our little meat sacks. And when we conjoin with another human, we are cosmically exchanging all of that energy. I am giving you whatever partner I've been with, whatever emotion I am feeling, whatever dishonesty that I'm not being honest with you about. And when we have partners that we aren't being fully open with, fully transparent, fully supportive, fully consensual, then it will create issues. You can sometimes get what's called a sexual imprint, where let's say I have sex with somebody who is extremely dishonest and they weren't honest with me, and they were maybe perhaps in a full-blown relationship that I didn't know anything about, and I have sex with that person, I'm now going to be feeling, sometimes it will show up as anxiety, sometimes it will show up as a yeast infection, sometimes it will show up as your stomach getting knots, you'll feel tension, you won't be able to sleep. It sometimes will show up as a frenzy. It will throw your energetic body off. And for those of us that are really, really sensitive, that are really in tune, it's like havoc. So cosmic and sacred sexuality means that I am not going to engage with anyone unless it is on a conscious level. And I mean conscious. I know. It's like, what? Okay, but just picture having intercourse with someone who you don't ever have to hide any parts of yourself about, who you can tell all your weirdness to, all the things about you that other people might be like, really? No, this is what I'm into. This is my jam. Please respect it. And so with cosmic and sacred sexuality, two people, and of course, I'm going to say the best times to do this are going to be on the full moon or new moon. You can have sex and make it into a ceremony for the gods. You can manifest through your orgasm or through your union. There will be times when I am with a partner and it will be a full moon and I will have set the space, and I will have invited in all of the blessings. For example, let's say we both want to bring in abundance into our lives. And so while we are engaging in this very, very sacred act of intimacy and sexuality, we are both thinking and manifesting of the world that we want to create. And I know it sounds hippy dippy, but most of the time when I'm having sex, I'm manifesting for world peace. I am using this giant freaking heart that was given to me as a way of emulating this love to the world. And I do the same thing with my masturbating. When I masturbate, and I don't do this always, it's something that I do when I feel called. For example, if I am feeling what I'd like to call overly sexual, where like I have an itch, I need to scratch, but I don't have anyone to scratch it. I need to scratch that itch myself. I will channel that orgasmic energy into something bigger than myself. I will sometimes manifest and I will orgasm through my masturbation into creative projects. I will ask the universe to bless me with insight. I will ask the universe for harmony. It works because I stopped attracting men that disrespected me.
Oh, wow.
Yes, like it was bad. And now when I go out into the world and I'm this beaming light, I attract people that just see me as a human and they don't see me as a sexual object. And that's what I asked through my manifesting, through my orgasms. They're very, very powerful, very powerful. And so really it's an intention. It's like, I've got this magic in me.
Right, sex magic.
Intend it to. And this is for everyone. This is not just for women. This is not just for people with wombs.
Right.
This is for every person, because my thought process when it comes to sex is the orgasm is not the destination. It is a part of the journey. But if I want to utilize this power for the greater good, I can absolutely channel and focus that to something, whatever it is. It looks like something different for everyone. You can't manifest a car.
Are you sure?
I mean, if you do, let me know. But if you manifest abundance and you get a car, then yes.
There we go.
You gotta manifest transportation, and then the blessings come in.
I feel like there needs to be a little more specificity.
Oh, that's funny.
And I love it, like woo-woo or not, everything that you said. For people who have sex in a certain way, I was like, that sounds just like manifesting a baby. Be careful.
Yeah. That can happen as well. That can absolutely happen as well for people that want to create that. It's like a convening of two minds. It's two people not just being on the same physical length, but being on the same energetic wavelength. Like there's no time in this world where we're like that, except when we are having intercourse with each other. And so for me, I had to take a big responsibility with that and say, okay, Amber, you need to pull it back and be a little bit more selective. And it is difficult and it is a practice, but I feel much healthier. I don't have the issues I was having before. My body does this thing where it will straight up reject someone. And it comes up very physically for me. And every time it happens, I acknowledge, okay, my body, everything about my body is saying this person is not good for me. And I have to cut that tie. And if I've had sex with someone who wasn't healthy, who I did kind of feel a cord that was toxic maybe attached or an imprint, then I do a whole process of releasing. I smudge myself. I do a ritual bath with particular herbs to smudge my womb. I'm very, very intentional in releasing whatever that was because it was not for my greater good, and then learning from that experience. Like, Amber, did you ignore the red flag because you were horny? Don't do that.
That part.
Don't do that. Don't lower yourself, value yourself.
Yes, absolutely. And we talked a little bit about how being sober, Like it makes a huge difference. Huge difference, like how you're able to read your, like someone else's energy, how they're able to read yours, and what you're bringing to the table collectively. And also you mentioned chords. So can you share a bit more about chords and
Oh
kind
yeah. So sometimes in our relationships, we create these energetic cords, and they're not always unhealthy. Sometimes we can create an energetic cord, a positive, an example of a positive energetic cord will be, for example, with someone, a friend of mine who uplifts me, who inspires me, who I continually feel pulled to. But when I leave that person, I do not feel drained. I don't feel anxiety. I don't feel tension.
Mm.
On the other hand, and these are kind of like what we call life contracts. We have these contracts with people that we agreed to up in the cosmos before we had bodies, and some of them are good, some of them are uncomfortable, but they're all things that we need. So if I create an unhealthy or toxic cord with someone, and I've done this with family, I have had this happen with friends, and I've definitely have had it happen with partners, because I'm so sensitive and so aware of my body, but also so empathic that I don't want to judge someone, it takes a little bit of time for me, because there's a part of me that goes, well, Amber, you have to love people as they are. That's true, but I don't have to allow them into my auric field. If my, oh, did your volume go? Oh, you're muted.
Oh, sorry. I just took a deep sigh.
So you'll feel the cord, because it's going to be something that stays with you long after the person is gone.
Yeah.
And it will be something that you can't identify from anywhere else. Like if you say, for example, you have a partner over and they stay the night, and during the time that you're with them, you know it's not right. You're doing it anyway, but you know, you know. And then after they leave, you are frenzied. You cannot think straight. Your body is tense. You then start reversing or repressing to not healthy habits. You go and you eat shitty. You might go to the bar and drink. You're doing something to feel better. And it's because that was not healthy. That wasn't healthy for you. For whatever it was, whatever it is, we don't have to judge it. But there are certain people that just are for us, certain people that help us grow, and certain people that we really have to stay away from. And that's okay. You know, it's okay. So when
Yeah.
you cut a cord, you can do it where you actually have like a ribbon, you visualize the person, you actually cut the ribbon, and then you can do something even a step further where you burn it or you bury it. But really, it is an energetic take back of your space and clearing whatever it is that tried to linger, that does not serve your purpose, that doesn't serve your highest good in that body.
Yeah.
So it is a lot of, I use incense. I use a lot of herbs like mugwort. I do use white sage, but that is a closed practice. You can, do it if you're indigenous or you understand the culture. But there are a lot of ways of cleansing yourself. Oftentimes I do floating. I do float tank. I've done float tanks after I have had an energetic exchange with someone who left me feeling mucky, and I'll leave it in the tank. I will let that magnesium seep into my body, and I will just energetically reject. I don't want this. This isn't part of me. And then I just leave it there.
Yeah. All right. One really quick question before we wrap up. Can you expel the muck with someone who is in your life? To just be able to have that clearance in the space? Because the muck, I don't know, the muck is the muck. Yeah.
That all it does, and it all comes down to boundaries. Everything boils down to boundaries.
Yep.
And without doing shadow work, you might have a much more difficult time to know what your boundaries are and how to place them. But once you become aware of exactly what works for you and what doesn't, you will be able to very gently and firmly be like, I'm good.
Yeah.
I don't want any of that. It looks good, but I know it's not going to be good. and then just standing firm in your sovereignty and in your temple and honoring, this is what's best for me. No judgment. This is what's best for me. It is boundaries.
I love it. I love it. Okay, so before we wrap up, tell us how we can find out more about you, where people can locate you for all the juicy, juicy tidbits that you shared.
Awesome. So I have like no social media because I am analog, not digital. I have one social media platform that is the best place to get a hold of me. It started out as just business content, as I was only going to post my products. And then as I carried on and grew with this business, I realized that the person behind the products is just as important. So if you go to Instagram and you look up Zen Af Vibe, which is exactly the way it's spelled, ZenAf Vibe, that's where you will find me. I am very vocal about community. I'm very big on activism, but I also share natural ways to feel good, herbs to use. I do create energetic products. And that's also where I give information for all of the dog sitting that I do. So Zen Af Vibe on Instagram is the best place. I do DMs, but I do not have notifications on. That is a boundary I've placed with myself because I don't subscribe to the narrative that I need to be available all the time.
Yes. Yes. Again, hence being Zen AF.
Yes.
Oh, all right, everybody. Thank you. Thank you so much for joining us today. The ItCast is our community outreach podcast that increases diversity in conversations on health and sexuality. Through this work, we are creating a world where all people are loved, honored, and respected. Do check out our upcoming events, the Global Sexual Health and Freedom Summit coming September 17th and 18th. You can RSVP at sexhealthsummit.com. Okay, you can also get one-on-one coaching with me. Go ahead and visit my link tree where you can book a 20-minute session and ask us anything. You can figure out, send in your questions, your comments, your everything. You can find that also on the link tree. And then get access to our bonus content. We're about to go have some more juicy talk. So go find that and check us out on Patreon. Learn more about our work at theitcast.com and subscribe to this YouTube channel and share with your community. All right, everybody.